What up, though? What's happening, y'all? Ricky Jones here. Feel like doing a little pod in the day, a little casting, new mic on deck. You know what I'm saying? So let's just get right into it, man. I was watching the news. Only time I really see the news is when I'm at my place of employment because it's TVs everywhere, and they just happen to be on random channels. And I caught an interesting type of, I guess you would say, it wasn't even really a news clip. It was just a term that I heard during a whole nother type of thing they was talking about. The term was incel. And I was like, I've never heard this word. Obviously it's new. So I was like, what would that happen to be? And then I looked it up and I was like, an incel. Incel is short for involuntarily celibate. Not voluntary. Voluntarily means, hey, I'll fall back. I'm cool. Y'all go ahead and run. I'll wait for the next game. Involuntarily means this ain't by choice. So these dudes are involuntarily celibate. So somehow we've gotten to the point now that since we have to define everything, and after I show this video, I got to show just one more after that. So we might go about 20, 30 minutes on this. Who knows? Who cares? Because there's no time limit on information. Let's get it. So these dudes are self-identifying members of an online subculture based around the inability to find a romantic or sexual partner, despite desiring one. Who typed that? Despite desiring one, I'm leaving out some words. That don't make sense. Despite desiring one, and they describe it as inceldom or incelibacy. And they should add another line there. These are also dudes that have the inability to come up with $40. Because damn it, if that's all it's about is finding a sexual partner, I understand the romantic part. Because damn it, people who get a lot of women have problems finding romance. But the sexual partner part is the part that blows my mind in the country called America, where $40 goes a long way. So these dudes, basically, they're trying to frame them as like basically these lone gunmen who's shooting up every fucking thing, and they trying to find a reason. It's all these. The New Yorker wrote an article. I'm not really going into the whole incel thing because when I heard about it, it reminded me of a story that I had saw last year. This was January 2019. This is called Japan's Modern Day Hermits, the world of the Hikikomori. Now, what we know about Japan and their culture, that's where all the video games come from. We know that as far as like having a lot of kids, these ain't like huge families. They might have 1, 2, 3 kids, and it ain't by law in Japan like it is in China. These just ain't huge families of people in a lot of circumstances from what I've seen. Now, I'm not saying it ain't Japanese people with huge families. I know Japanese people with huge families, but I don't know any Japanese in Japan. And based off what I'm seeing in Japan, they ain't having a bunch of damn kids lately. So, when I saw the incel thing, I see the Hikikomori thing, and I'm like, this ties really to this society that ain't really as social. People who can't really read that well, write that well, speak that well in front of a group of people. They spend a lot of time online by themselves, even though they have a lot of friends online or people they chat with online, they're by themselves. They don't get a lot of social time. So it reminded me of this story. And I want to parallel these incels to the Hikikomori. France 24. They gonna block this video.
While these caged birds perhaps dream of spreading their wings, Yusuke has no desire to join them. Instead, he avoids all contact with the world beyond the tiny room he's barely left in the last decade. He's a hikikomori, the Japanese word for a person who seeks isolation and who never leaves home.
I need the sound of the TV, otherwise I don't feel well. The silence reminds me that I'm alone. I often stay in my futon the whole day and just stare at the ceiling.
Yusuke had a normal
back this up for a second. Now, it ain't the fact that he's living by
their
himself
wings.
and forcefully living by himself, but peep his level of interest as a man. This is an adult male. Because they say he's been doing this damn near a decade by himself. Let's see what he's into.
Yusuke has no desire to join them.
I see a lot of what looks like cartoonish stuff. Very colorful stuff. Now, mind you, am I a fan of animation? Yes, I love it. Grew up on it and continue to enjoy it to this day with myself as well as my children. But this, it's so organized. Now, it's not like he's a filthy man. He looks clean. He takes care of himself. His stuff is put together pretty decently. He saves money. That looks like a lotion bottle, but whatever. But it looks like it has a little setup right here. Got a record player. I mean, the dude is a music enthusiast with a record player. But what else does this guy got going on? Nice fan, dude. Nice fart fan.
Instead, he avoids all contact with the world beyond the tiny room he's barely left in the last decade. He's a hikikomori, the Japanese word for a person who seeks isolation and who never leaves home.
I need the sound of the TV, otherwise I don't feel well. The silence reminds me that I'm alone. I often stay in my futon.
Again, we got more cartoon. I guess the futon's over there somewhere. This dude live in a closet. What else we got cracking? That's a printer. So he's got a printer. I see some remotes. Look like a DVD player. Dude actually watches commercials.
On the whole day and just stare at the ceiling.
Yusuke had a normal childhood, but at university he was bullied by one of his professors and other students. The trauma turned him against people in general. Since then, time has stood still.
Who raised you though? So I don't know how it is in Japan, but damn it, he had a teacher and some students. Not like, yeah, I guess I get the same teacher every year or something. I don't know. But a teacher, a student, I ain't leaving the house ever. And he got $40. That's got to be at least $40.
He's 32, but his room looks like it belongs to a teenager. He struggles to find the words to express himself, as if he's trying to find a sense of direction in life.
Again, I speak about this all the time, and it was a big thing that it just like always lingers in the back of my mind with my children, because it's like, what if when they circle the kids around in first, second, third, fourth grade nowadays, and they be like, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up? What do the kids at least aspire to be nowadays? Do they still say firefighter, nurse, doctor, fucking rodeo rider, or fucking skydiver? Do they still do that? How the hell can you grow up and get to adulthood and figure out, I don't even want to try some shit. I don't even want to try what I see other people doing. I can't even figure it out. But it's millions of people doing stuff, and you can't figure out what you want to do. Rather than do something, you rather do nothing. Rather than doing the billions of some things, you rather do the one nothing, because you look like this in the face. A grown baby.
It is as if I forget everything, that nothing is clear-cut. All I know is that my body feels heavy. I'm afraid of the world. Even a phone call or an email stress me out.
A form of depression or other mental health problem, a social phobia, or an act of rebellion. Whatever the
But if it was an illness, then why would it be the Hikikomori?
diagnosis, Hikikomori people are united by an inability to comply with Japan's strict rules of social interaction. On the other side of the room, Yusuke's mother's preparing a meal for him. Most Hikikomori depend on their parents to survive.
And that's another thing there. I saw a dude post an Instagram post, a Facebook post. It could have been fake, doctored and Photoshop, but supposedly this girl said that instead of letting her son get turned out by a nothing chick, she would rather take his manhood from him herself and let him go at it with her, just so he ain't out there dealing with the nothing chicks. Come on, Mom.
The parents are ashamed of their children, members of a lost generation in a society that places a premium on work.
I've stood outside his bedroom door many times and begged him to come out, to go to the park or the bird shop, because he likes birds. I don't know what to do. I've consulted doctors and been to seminars. All I can say is that it's hard, really hard. He's not interested in anything. I've tried to get him interested in things, but he doesn't want to go out.
He isn't. He's interested in them damn books, anime, TV, and cartoons. So, like, let him dress up like something and do something. He could stand and spin a sign and dress up like one of these damn characters.
It's making me depressed too.
These are your incels.
The Hikikomori phenomenon was identified in the late 1990s, when Japan's post-bubble economic troubles hit young people particularly hard.
Post-bubble.
But today,
ain't no more room for no more stockbrokers. Daddy got to work an extra decade because of the bubble. Ain't no more room for no extra car dealers to take over the dealership because Daddy got to work another decade because of the bubble. That's where these fucking incels is coming from, y'all. They couldn't take over Daddy business. They didn't have nobody to lead them in a way to get them off the fucking video games and do something. Nerds are cool nowadays. What is this thing that's lower than nerddom? I embrace nerddom because nerddom is dope. You get to like know everything and wear goofy glasses and just walk around and just. Who are these guys? Who are these incels?
the Hikikomori generation is not made up of a specific age group or people from a certain social background.
Absolutely not.
Most of them are men, but an increasing number are women.
It's the era.
The ability to order just about everything they need online means they never have to leave their rooms. Alice has lived a reclusive life for a total of 5 years.
I went through my first Hikikomori phase when I was young, but I managed to come out of it. Then I went to university, found a job, and a boyfriend. I thought I'd been spared. And then finally I had a relapse. It's as if the lights have been turned off. I have no willpower, no desire to do anything. There is nothing inside anymore.
Cartoons, kid shit.
消えるって感じですかね。火が消えるみたいな。
As bad as I be wanting to get on the game, y'all, it's something like inside me don't let me no more.
Alice ended up leaving her job and her husband. These days, though, she feels more comfortable talking to people. Others are not so fortunate. Every year, an estimated 30,000 reclusive people die alone in Japan. They're not suicides, but solitary, silent ends.
30,000 people a year. Dolo. You don't know tell them how long you've been up in the spot. There's nobody there with you. Ain't nobody visiting.
This room was once home to a 68-year-old man.
Keep all the documents organized. Social security slips, tax papers, bills and bank cards.
Neighbours alerted the authorities after noticing the smell 2 months after his death. These are the belongings of a person who died alone. Several companies specialise in cleaning apartments once occupied by tenants who died alone.
His legs were here and his head there. He must have had a fall.
The mysterious life of the former occupants is slowly unravelling. After working as an accountant for 40 years, he, like an increasing number of Japanese, stopped communicating with the outside world after he retired.
ratatouille, beans, ready meals. These are typical of the foods eaten by people who live alone. I go about my cleaning methodically and try not to think about the circumstances or delve too deeply into the life of the people whose places I'm cleaning. All the same, I can't avoid seeing their possessions, so I tell myself that I'm going to get married and not end up alone like them.
As Japanese society ages, so do the Hikikomori. The older they are, the lonelier they become. With no family or friends to look out for them, they simply fade from view, ignored by the rest of society.
If these people had more contact with their neighbours, we could have avoided these solitary deaths. People should pay more attention to others and try to build a real community spirit, with proper communication between neighbours.
The dead man did have someone, his niece, who's come to collect his possessions and pay the €4,000 cleaning bill.
Do you want to keep these documents?
Yes, I have already put aside all of the important ones.
I care. Then I call him and he didn't answer. Then I sometimes visit him or call or send a message. That's all. I cared. Yeah, I tried to him out, like let's go to dinner or something. I told him he didn't want to.
United States dollars,
He refused.
He was very lonely.
But he likes that way. He lives alone and he died alone.
The Hikikomori seem determined to hang on to their solitude, yet many dream of a different life. To address the problem, the Japanese government this year conducted its first nationwide study of Hikikomori aged over 40. Teppei Sekimizu, who's published a book on Hikikomori, says modern Japanese society is to blame.
Unlike European countries that value...
Everybody looks the same. Hold on, wait a minute, okay. If I had to guess, hold on, wait. Okay, if I had to guess, I'm assuming this is a class full of all ladies. I'm assuming this, but I see this head, maybe this head on the other side of this head, maybe, might be a dude. Maybe. I mean, she cool. She's like, these ladies got nice personalities. They like to, do, but they not really looking like they got no energy kind of coming off of them. None of that, hey there energy. I don't see it.
Unlike European countries that value the importance of the individual, the Japanese emphasize common rules. In that sense, an individual's value is dependent on his ability to conform to the rules set by the group.
Also, we got to remember, they dropped that bomb in the 40s. So we only about a generation after that. These is like the grandkids of them people who survived that shit. So they had to come back and really kind of reshape their society. America, in the same sense, all our grandfathers fought in some type of conflict. If they didn't, that means they were in a different place in society that allowed them to not have to go to the military. But the majority of our grandfathers and beyond, and their kin, and their seeds fought in some type of military conflict. Or they got caught up in that drug war. So our society had to be reshaped in a way to which it was not a lot of groupthink. It became individuality because it was all, you got to get yours. I got to get mine. You got to get yours. I got to get mine. You got to get yours. So get yours. It became that. It was no group. So in inverse, we became a bunch of individuals. They lost their individuality because they got it taken away by that damn bomb.
The Hikikomori are people who are unable to do that, and as a result, they feel completely useless. They're ashamed. They are incapable of following the rules of society, and they suffer from feelings of guilt as a result.
Some non-governmental organizations offer job training to those who are willing to leave their rooms for a few hours.
This is how you create an Excel file.
This group teaches the basics: composing an invoice, emailing a senior colleague, speaking in public, or simply laughing and relaxing among other people.
I would like to ask a question, but I don't know how.
First, we ask them to come only twice a month, as initially the aim is just to persuade them to leave their homes. We start slowly. We don't have sessions every day. We can't ask too much of them.
Around 2 out of 3 participants lose interest, but the others go on to find jobs with companies working alongside the NGO. It took this man 3 years to recover.
Before I was incapable of speaking, but I'm not scared anymore. I can communicate with my colleagues and work as part of a team. I think that's what I really learned here, to collaborate and communicate.
I wanted them to go a little bit more into the middle ground, because they had the young dude who still had the ability to stay with his parents, and then they had the old retired guy who had probably enough savings and earnings in his life. If he just sat back and chilled, ain't spending, ain't doing nothing, he was able to pay rent and be him. Who are these people in the middle talking about 3 years I ain't do nothing, 7 years I did nothing? Who are they? Where are they? What are they doing, and how are they doing this? Something else is underlying in this. They need to go deeper. This thing about 6 more minutes long, man.
I can start my life again. I have more confidence now.
For him and others, normality means accepting society's conventions, but not its stress on conformity. Alice has been working at a startup for the past few months. Her employer knows about her past and allows her some freedom. Most importantly, she's no longer afraid of going out and meeting other people.
In the beginning, my eyes were so used to the darkness of my room that the sunlight was blinding. I couldn't bear it. I suffered with that for a long time.
Once a month, she goes to an editorial meeting of a magazine that's by and for the Hikikomori. Everyone working for the publication, which launched early this year, have spent time living in isolation. Today, though, they're eager to share their experiences.
In the beginning, it was a voyage of discovery. I finally felt comfortable with people, because here everybody has experienced a bit of what I lived through.
I don't like being in places where there are a lot of people. But here, we know each other and don't judge each other. We can behave how we like. We don't even have to sit down if we don't want to.
Having lived on the fringes of society, these men and women have overcome their sense of shame and now have an outlet for their personalities. Their monthly magazine, Hikiposu, is available online and in print and has several thousand readers.
How in the hell are they going to make a magazine about people who don't leave the house? Who's reading the magazine about the people who don't leave the house? If it's written about and by people who used to not leave the house, wouldn't the people who don't leave the house need to be reading the magazine about the people who don't leave the house? That's why they only got a handful of readers. That's a whole pressed and printed publication. They got 1,000 readers. Who is funding everything in Japan? Wait, first they all seem like they all live rent-free. Now they got a whole office space, magazine, printed, photo. That's a nice cover photo, because that ain't no just regular pose. That ain't a good Photoshop job.
Personalities. Their monthly magazine.
That is a nice shot. Hikikomori. Who is funding y'all life?
Hikiposu is available online and in print and has several thousand readers. They include Hikikomori and parents hoping to better understand what their children are going through.
For our next cover, we can choose a man or a woman, but the person should really have a personality.
It was groundbreaking, y'all. Listen, next time, this is what we're going to do. We're going to either choose a man or a woman. And, get this, and let's just say they have just a little personality as well. How about that now, lady? That was not groundbreaking at all. These people's thought processes, that was not revolutionary.
This young girl conveys the pain of living. She reflects an underground alternative culture. A lot of people have negative feelings towards hikikomori. They think we are spoilt or lazy. But we hope to change that misconception through this magazine.
This group of people have an even bigger ambition: to challenge society's obsession with productivity and competition.
Japanese people think that if someone doesn't work, then he or she is worthless. But by talking, by reflecting on the hikikomori phenomenon, we can show a different way of living. That's important.
None of them chose to live cut off from the rest of society, but today they're using their experience to find meaning in life. That offers hope to the estimated 500,000 hikikomori who have yet to find their way back into the outside world.
Wow, wow, wow. Wow, wow, wow. I don't need to hear the French guy. Oui, oui. Sweet, sweet. So again, man, I hear this word, and get this guy off the screen. Wait, let's just play something random here. So I hear this term, this incel thing, and I'm not 100% wrapping my head around why, again, here in America, we gotta have this media apparatus that likes to just define everything for us. Everything has to have a cut and dry definition. Well, it's this subculture, guys, online. Notice if you go, I just heard this today, but somehow they have a whole definition. Again, these are dudes who are members of an online subculture. Online subculture. Now, what I want to do is this. Every now and again, y'all, what you can do with the Google machine is you can say, hey, I want to Google something, and then you Google it. But then you're like, hey, I wonder when was like the first time somebody ever said this. So you can say, hey, Google, let me go back to like 2009. And then just go from 2009 to 2012 and be like, hey, was this term used like prior to just recently? Looks like it. Confessions of a Reformed Incel, November 17th, 2012. Now here's the key. This guy here says that the reason for his inceluous activities is because of depression. And specifically, he refers to it as a space of the internet. And then he goes on and tells, and possibly this guy's from, I think this is either, what's this, Toronto or Vancouver, one of them cities. It's a Canadian place. So, it's not a new term. So once again, our media throws these words at us as if it's a movement. They tie certain people and pictures to it and make it seem like it's larger than it is. So we're going to end today with one of my favorite stand-ups by one of my top 3 comic, what is it, Mount Rushmore you would call it, I guess. But put him up there to me, because when it comes to this comedy thing, man, I got a lot of people I really like, but the people who I saw early that made me kind of fall in love with the art form of being able to make people laugh while informing them and making them think about their own teachings, because that's all it is. George Carlin, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't like words that hide the truth. I don't like words that conceal reality. I don't like euphemisms or euphemistic language. And American English is loaded with euphemisms because Americans have a lot of trouble dealing with reality. Americans have trouble facing the truth. So they invent a kind of a soft language to protect themselves from it. And it gets worse with every generation. For some reason, it just keeps getting worse. I'll give you an example of that. There's a condition in combat. Most people know about it. It's when a fighting person's nervous system has been stressed to its absolute peak and maximum, can't take any more input. The nervous system has either snapped or is about to snap. In the First World War, that condition was called shell shock. Simple, honest, direct language. 2 syllables, shell shock. Almost sounds like the guns themselves. That was 70 years ago. Then a whole generation went by, and the Second World War came along, and the very same combat condition was called battle fatigue. 4 syllables now. Takes a little longer to say. Doesn't seem to hurt as much. Fatigue is a nicer word than shock. Shell shock. Battle fatigue. Then we had the war in Korea, 1950. Madison Avenue was riding high by that time, and the very same combat condition was called operational exhaustion. Hey, we're up to 8 syllables now. And the humanity has been squeezed completely out of the phrase. It's totally sterile now. Operational exhaustion. Sounds like something that might happen to your car. Then, of course, came the war in Vietnam, which has only been over for about 16 or 17 years. And thanks to the lies and deceit surrounding that war, I guess it's no surprise that the very same condition was called post-traumatic stress disorder. Still 8 syllables, but we've added a hyphen. And the pain is completely buried under jargon. Post-traumatic stress disorder. I'll bet you if we'd have still been calling it shell shock, some of those Vietnam veterans might have gotten the attention they needed at the time. I'll bet you that. I'll bet you that. But it didn't happen. And one of the reasons is because we were using that soft language, that language that takes the life out of life. And it is a function of time. It does keep getting worse. Give you another example. Sometime during my life, toilet paper became bathroom tissue. I wasn't notified of this. No one asked me if I agreed with it. It just happened. Toilet paper became bathroom tissue. Sneakers became running shoes. False teeth became dental appliances. Medicine became medication. Information became directory assistance. The dump became the landfill. Car crashes became automobile accidents. Partly cloudy became partly sunny. Motels became motor lodges. House trailers became mobile homes. Used cars became previously owned transportation. Room service became guest room dining. And constipation became occasional irregularity. When I was a little kid, if I got sick, they wanted me to go to the hospital and see the doctor. Now they want me to go to a health maintenance organization or a wellness center to consult a healthcare delivery professional. Poor people used to live in slums. Now the economically disadvantaged occupy substandard housing in the inner cities. And they're broke. They're broke. They don't have a negative cash flow position. They're fucking broke. Because a lot of them were fired. You know, fired. Management wanted to curtail redundancies in the human resources area. So many people are no longer viable members of the workforce. Smug, greedy, well-fed white people have invented a language to conceal their sins. It's as simple as that. The CIA doesn't kill anybody anymore. They neutralize people. Or they depopulate the area. The government doesn't lie. It engages in disinformation. The Pentagon actually measures nuclear radiation in something they call sunshine units. Israeli murderers are called commandos. Arab commandos are called terrorists. Contra killers are called freedom fighters. Well, if crime fighters fight crime and firefighters fight fire, what do freedom fighters fight? They never mention that part of it to us, do they? Never mention that part of it. And some of this stuff is just silly. We all know that. Like on the airlines, they say they want a pre-board. Well, what the hell is pre-board? What does that mean? To get on before you get on? They say they're going to pre-board those passengers in need of special assistance. Cripples. Simple, honest, direct language. There's no shame attached to the word cripple that I can find in any dictionary. No shame attached to it. In fact, it's a word used in Bible translations. Jesus healed the cripples. Doesn't take 7 words to describe that condition. But we don't have any cripples in this country anymore. We have the physically challenged. Is that a grotesque enough evasion for you? How about differently abled? I've heard them called that, differently abled. You can't even call these people handicapped anymore. They'll say, we're not handicapped, we're handy-capable. These poor people have been bullshitted by the system into believing that if you change the name of the condition, somehow you'll change the condition. Well, hey, cousin, doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. We have no more deaf people in this country, hearing impaired. No one's blind anymore, partially sighted or visually impaired. We have no more stupid people. Everybody has a learning disorder. Or he's minimally exceptional. How would you like to be told that about your child? He's minimally exceptional. Oh, thank God for that. Psychologists actually have started calling ugly people those with severe appearance deficits. It's getting so bad that any day now I expect to hear a rape victim referred to as an unwilling sperm recipient. And we have no more old people in this country. No more old people. We shipped them all away, and we brought in these senior citizens. Isn't that a typically American 20th century phrase? Bloodless, lifeless, no pulse in one of them, a senior citizen. But I've accepted that one. I've come to terms with it. I know it's here to stay. We'll never get rid of it. That's what they're going to be called, so I'll relax on that. But the one I do resist, the one I keep resisting, is when they look at an old guy and they'll say, look at him, Dan, he's 90 years young. Imagine the fear of aging that reveals. To not even be able to use the word old to describe someone, to have to use an antonym. And fear of aging is natural, it's universal, isn't it? We all have that. No one wants to get old, no one wants to die, but we do. So we bullshit ourselves. I started bullshitting myself when I got to my 40s. As soon as I was in my 40s, I'd look in the mirror and I'd say, well, I guess I'm getting older. Older sounds a little better than old, doesn't it? Sounds like it might even last a little longer. Bullshit, I'm getting old. And it's okay, because thanks to our fear of death in this country, I won't have to die. I'll pass away. Or I'll expire like a magazine subscription. If it happens in the hospital, they'll call it a terminal episode. The insurance company will refer to it as negative patient care outcome. And if it's the result of malpractice, they'll say it was a therapeutic misadventure. I'm telling you, some of this language makes me want to vomit. Well, maybe not vomit. Makes me want to engage in an involuntary personal protein spill. Thank you all.